itself, I would like to introduce the product to you. So the bubble cam is a camera. It's a spherical camera. So as you can see, it has 4 lenses. So when I take a photo, I actually take 4 individual photos. So on the left side, you'll see a raw image, the way it comes off from the camera. So when I press the button on the camera, 4 individual photos are taken, and our camera has a software that stitches everything together in a seamless sphere. So on the right side, you see a stitched image. So that's an equirectangular format. It's an industry standard. So just imagine the world like it's a ball, but when you flatten it out on like a piece of paper, you see a map. So that's basically what we do. We have the sphere, the photo or a video, and then we flatten it out onto like we project it onto a flat screen, which is basically like the world map. So and then we have a bubble player, so you can see your photos and videos in a sphere. I'm just going to open this link to demo this to you. So does everybody see?
Yeah. Yes, I see.
I can see it.
Okay, so that's our player, and that's the photo that I just that you saw in the 4 individual images.
No problem.
Okay.
Presentation. We don't see what you're showing. Oh, now it's good.
Jel vidite sada?
Da, sad.
Jel se pojavilo? Okay.
Okay.
So just in general, like, what could be a goal of a product? So a product could provide a core user experience. It could fulfill a need. It could solve a problem or provide a certain value. But these days, it's very important to notice that what people actually buy are not products, they buy experiences. And that's something that as a product manager you have to understand, that people don't go and buy a bubble cam and they hold a bubble cam and think, oh, here, I have a new product. What they buy is the ability to be able to take spherical photos, to capture some really, really great innovative content that they wouldn't be able to do before. So that's something that, you know, in the role of a product manager, you really have to understand. It's not about the camera itself, it's about the experience that the end user is going to have while using your product. And so the bubble cam itself is actually an ecosystem. So of course, the first thing you see is the bubble cam itself, like the hardware product, but we actually have a lot of software around it. There is software on the camera, like embedded software development that we do. Plus, there are mobile apps. We developed an iOS and Android app, which allows you to remotely control your camera, view the camera onto your phone, so you can view it, you can share it, you can manage your media in the cloud. And then we have a web app where the same way, like you can either transfer your photos straight onto your mobile app, or in a typical way, like you take out the SD card and you upload it to our Bubble Cloud, where you can again share your photos with friends and family and just view them and see them. We have a player that has its own player API and SDK, so that's kind of its own separate product inside the entire Bubble ecosystem. We have cloud APIs and cloud services that support the web app and the mobile app. And we have our Bubble Cam website. Plus, we have an R&D kind of, I'll say, department in quotes, because we don't really have departments. But one of major things at Bubble is that we have an R&D department that really is working hard on like very complex algorithms. That's you know, the core IP of our product. And a few months ago, Google released an open spherical camera API, which we align with. So as soon as Google released their open spherical camera API, we adjusted our operating system to comply with their suggested solutions. So as you can see, when we talk about products, it's not just the actual bubble cam as a hardware product, it is the entire ecosystem that we have to handle, and where we have to, you know, provide a great experience across all these components. So now, what do I do on my day-to-day basis? Like every day when I come to work, one of my major tasks or my major things I do is take care of the roadmap. So a product management develops a roadmap and identifies and assesses the validity and feasibility of product features and opportunities. So you're responsible to keep your product roadmap up to date, to communicate it to your stakeholders, and really make sure that it's kind of reflects the outside world. Like if there's a new technology that's coming out and you really want to go back and see if you should adjust your roadmap to be ahead of competition, or yeah. And a product manager is responsible to manage and prioritize the backlog while leading a team of developers and designers in executing the product's roadmap. So as I said in the beginning, your major task as a product manager, and that's what I've been mainly working with, I work very closely with my team and help them execute the roadmap and really deliver and So another thing on the day-to-day basis that I do quite a lot is I collaborate. I work very closely with the hardware and R&D team just to ensure and guarantee the overall quality of the product. I cooperate with the software engineering team to improve methods around agile methodology development and product development, and I collaborate with marketing and customer support. So that's very important because through all our different channels, we want to communicate the same message around our product. So especially for the product launch, I've been working very, very closely with customer support and marketing to define the marketing strategy, but also set up a proper customer support. Another part that's very, very important is user experience and research. As a product manager, you have to make sure the right product and features is delivered at the right time. For example, when YouTube 360 released their 360 ability in their players, what we did, like we immediately adjusted our backlog on our roadmap to include compliance with their new feature. So as soon as YouTube released their 360 ability, we were able to you were able to upload your video from our Bubble Cam into our Bubble Cloud and then push it straight to YouTube without any complication and uploads. So as a product manager, you really ensure a great user experience across the entire ecosystem, and you understand the target market, you collect user feedback, and you try to understand your competition, which is very important. You can also get a lot of inspiration by just doing that work, like really understanding target users and what they want. So as a product manager, you have to be able to communicate the success of your work. The only way to do is to define KPIs and measure them. So by defining KPIs, you have to implement analytics, and it's really, really important. Otherwise, you kind of work all along and you don't really know how to measure your success. So it really helps you to define those criteria and measure them. And then there are many, many other tasks that the product manager has to deal with, like pitching products to potential investors. So when I'm in the tech scene, and Mila will know that, in Toronto and wherever I go, like you definitely try to sell your product and try to communicate the best parts about it. So in my case, my CEO also took me to China to help him pitch the product in front of some very important Chinese investors, which was quite interesting. As a product manager, you use your product day and night. You are the #1 user, and you constantly use your product, test it, bring back bugs and issues, and talk to your developers and make sure that everything just works out as expected. Another very big task of a product manager is to keep up the team motivation and inspire your team, communicate properly, and really make them, want to come to work and work with you on something awesome. But I'll talk a little bit about that later. Okay, so here are just 2 examples of me like being, on the boat outside in the nature in Canada here. And wherever I am, the bubble cam is with me. So I really tested in like a real world, like real world situations. This is how a user would use the camera. So I really go out there and use it in an everyday situation. Okay. Any questions so far? Okay. So the second component that's very important to be a successful product manager is your team. And when people work well together, their outputs are unimaginably better. So a properly working team is probably something that you should definitely take care of, that will definitely guarantee you success. So I would never, like, let's never say never, but I definitely prefer to work in an agile environment, and I definitely see the positive parts about an agile development process. The other thing I want to talk about are requirements, and the third part is user experience. So there are many frameworks for agile processes and agile product development, like Scrum or Kanban, and they come with their own set of rules. But I'm a big believer that rules are there to be broken. So at Bubble, we started with some kind of a mix between Kanban and Scrum, and we try certain things out. But in the end, when things just don't work, you have to change them and adjust them. You have to make up your own rules, whatever works for your team. So right now we have our own, I'd say, Bubble agile approach, which is, yeah, maybe I should put it down on a piece of paper, but it's very unique to our company. So, but I would say the goals of an agile product development is to have small and frequent releases. Releasing should be easy, and a team should release often. That's very important because these days you don't want to develop on a feature for 3 to 4 months and then release it and then get the feedback. And by the time the world has turned around and your product is already old and doesn't fit, so you definitely want to make sure to release small and frequent pieces of your functionality of your product, so you can get feedback immediately and you don't have to wait for the feedback for a long time. So, and that's all what Agile is about. Like, it's a very iterative process where you release small chunks of your product, you get the feedback, you see if you should continue the way you started or if you should adjust. And that's the great thing about Agile development. What else we wanted to do is establish in our processes continuous integration and deployment. It's really important that the work that's being done by the team immediately gets out there and can be tested, like by me, for example, by a product manager. I was constantly running around and testing everything that the team was delivering on a daily basis. We also implemented automated tests, and we loved pair programming because if we had a team member that wanted to learn something new, pair programming is a great way to share knowledge and really include everybody in the development. One thing that we really liked were pull requests. As soon as a team member pushed something into GitHub, there was a pull request sitting out there, so somebody else had to do a code review on that piece. So that really ensures quality and makes sure that the delivered code is not unique to a person, but can be understood by everybody on the team, which we also try to avoid. Or code ownership is something that we didn't really like that's kind of causes problem if we always say it, like, if the person gets hit by a bus and doesn't come to work, the code is really hard to understand. Another thing that really worked for us very well are walls. All walls are whiteboards. So if you have a problem and you just want to discuss with your team members, you just get up, go behind you, and try to draw on a whiteboard and kind of discuss solutions. This really helped us in a lot of situations. And one of my favorite things about the Agile approaches are retrospectives. So retrospectives are there to meet with a team after a certain amount of time and really discuss the process. How are we working? What is going well? What is not going well? What can we improve? So I really like retrospectives because it gives the team the time to reflect their work and really think about not just let's deliver the things, let's also think about how we work. So we try to keep 20% of every developer's time to think about new processes and improvement of processes, which is very important these days. Some tools that really helped us to stay agile were Circle CI, GitHub, Jira, Confluence, and HipChat. So most of our communication was really put into Jira, and that was the tool that everybody used. So now I would like to talk about product requirements, because it's just a big part of every product manager's day-to-day tasks. And I would like to just show you how we used to work with requirements. So if we wanted to start working on a new feature, we call it the epic. It's just an epic because that's something that Jira suggests as an issue name. So if we started working on a new feature that's kind of an epic, we would have an epic kickoff to start discussing what needed to be built. And so the product manager defines what is going to be built, but the team and the developers define the how is it going to be built. And so during those epic kickoffs, we bring every single skill or every single team member that we need to fulfill that feature in one room, and we start talking about it. And we try to phrase it very, very simple. For example, a feature request could sound like, as a user, I want to be able to switch on and off the live stream in order to save battery life. That's a simple message that I would write down and tell my team, this is what we're working on. And then during the epic kickoff, we start discussing how are we going to realize it. And what we do as well, we start to see the feature from the user perspective. You know, developers, they always kind of tend to think in tasks. They're already like somewhere in the task level, and they're trying to think about, oh, if I want to develop that feature, I have to go in my code and change this and this and that. But so what I try to teach my developers is to first think about the user. Like, how is the user going to use this feature? We always had our user experience designer in the room to work together with the developers. And I use certain techniques to kind of help emphasize the user experience. So once we defined that user experience that we wanted to release, the developers then went ahead and then it was up to them to kind of decide how are they going to do it. Like, I would never really go and question a developer. Like, to me, they are the best and they know the best how to realize that. So one important thing that we really implemented is during the epic kickoff, we defined an epic owner. So basically, one of the developers turned into the owner of that feature, which meant that developer, the owner of the feature, was responsible to fully deliver that feature. So in my case, I would never talk to the entire team. I would always talk to the epic owner and try to find out the updates and if there are any issues. And at the end of that feature, when it was finished, the epic owner, the feature owner, would demo the entire feature to the company. So every day between 4 and 5, we had a time that we reserved for product demos. And whenever something was out there that's ready to be demoed, the epic owner would demo it to the entire company. So because we were using Jira, there was no need to communicate through email. And we also tried to avoid that because communication through email is just very toxic and nasty. And then the email threads just get longer and longer. And very important information that's kind of stuck in those emails, and you never know like how to get it out. So when we communicate and work with developers, everything goes through Jira. Like either comments or adding your own descriptions, whatever developers prefer, but we only communicated through Jira. There was no email communication at all. And there was also no document ownership. Like, we tried to avoid that. What we tried to establish is more like a collective product feature ownership, and that really worked quite well. So instead of me standing in front of the team and saying, I'm your boss and I'm telling you what to do, it's definitely better to to empower your team to be owners of certain pieces. And that really is, it's much nicer to work with a team that has that attitude. Okay, so the last thing I want to talk about regarding the team is the user experience. So when I introduce the product to you guys, you see how, it's all about you hold the product and you use it. But the actual interaction with your product starts much, much earlier. Like, the awareness phase is where people get aware of your product. People get the app. So within the product development phase, you have to be aware of this entire chain. Like, people who interact with you, they interact with different channels. So, for example, I'm interested in buying a product, so I'm aware of the product, I evaluate it. At that point, I'm already interacting with your company, your product, and with the bubble player. So the product has to be set up in a certain way, so these touch points are set up nicely and communicate properly. So often what product management does, it only takes care of the actual usage, but after using the product, there's a support phase and retention, and you want users to talk positively about your product, so other people, get aware of that and buy your product. So that's something that I definitely was trying to overlook as well, and that's where the communication and collaboration between your other teams in the company is very, very important. Because it's not just about the product, it's about the entire chain and how your customer, in which phase it interacts with the product. And the last thing I want to talk about is leadership. So this is probably the most important part, because as a product manager, you're also a coach, and you always understand how people work together, and you try to motivate your team, and you try to inspire them. You know the strengths of individual people, and you place them properly within the team. You help your team to be focused. You keep the stakeholders away. This is something that I'm not joking about, but in our company, there will be managers who will walk up to a developer and say, hey, can you just quickly do something for me? And this is a no-go. If somebody has a desire or a wish or wants to implement, has an idea, they should talk to the product manager and not to the developers, because that's just distracting and steals time from the really important things. As a product manager, you should be able to create an environment where your team wants to come to work and wants to work on something challenging as the product. So the other important part is, as a product manager, you're also an influencer. So you have to have the ability to kind of convince other people to do what you need them to do, but only for the good of the product. For that, you also need to develop a trust and respect within your team. If you don't have the trust and the respect, you can try to influence how much you want, but this just won't work. The third thing, engineer versus non-engineer. So that's a discussion that's often, being discussed online in articles and in forums. So the question is, do you have to be an engineer to work as a product manager or a non-engineer? So I'm a non-engineer, I don't have a developer background, but one thing that's really, really important is that you speak the same language with the engineers. So even in day-to-day situations, if I talk to developers and there's something that they mention and I don't know about it, I'm immediately online and reading it up, looking it up. Sometimes I even just go for coffee with developers and let them, explain things to me that I don't understand. Or with our hardware team, I can take the entire camera apart, disassemble, and reassemble it into all its bits and pieces. it's, you know, it's just fun to do that. And that way I understand the entire like inside life of the bubble cam. I know every chip inside a camera. I know every all the components, and I know how they work together. So that definitely helps me in my everyday, you know, communication with the hardware team. So I mentioned collective ownership. That's something that is very, very important. And so as a product manager, you should build a process to collaboratively decide on features on the product with your team. That makes the team feel, you know, more important, and they feel more involved, and they will definitely contribute better quality to the product than they would be without it. Regarding stakeholder management, I can just say it's all about communication and information management. It can get quite quite challenging, but a product manager has to find a fine line between communicating and managing the stakeholders. And again, a power user, like product manager is definitely using the product constantly. I've been using it constantly, reporting bugs. I probably put in more bugs and issues into our Jira system than anybody else. I'm also trying to discover how people react to the product from a social context. I'm constantly trying to, you know, use it and test it. One thing that's interesting as a product manager, problem solver versus stepping back. So if you feel that you're like, as a product manager, you're supposed to help your team resolve problems, but if you feel like things are just going smooth, nothing is, you know, in the way, like the ship is just floating, like everything's running, then you just start to, only because you have product manager in your title, it doesn't mean you have to constantly manage things. If things are going well, just let it go, don't intervene. And very important are users. As a product manager, you should reach out proactively to users as early as you can. So as soon as you have a working prototype, you should go and talk to users and get their feedback and see what they think about your product. It's very important, and it shouldn't be done after a product launch. It should be done way before. The last thing I want to mention is that when you work on products, you work on a today's product, but you also have to consider that there is a past of the product and that there is a future of the product. So you have to lay out the right, you know, you have to lay out the right infrastructure, let's say, whatever you need for the future vision of the product. So that's something that you have to constantly work with. It's not the now that counts, it's all these things like run a product that you have to set up properly in order to reach and envision the product. Yeah, I think that's it. Any questions?
Здраво, hteo sam da vas pitam koliki je tim, pošto ste pričali o timu, konkretno koliki je tim developera?
Mi smo bili oko 25 developers. Ne, malo manje, sorry, 20 nas.
Drugo pitanje koje sam imao za vas je kako pratite analitiku uspeha proizvoda, pošto ste to rekli na prvom delu o proizvodu kad ste pričali.
Molim?
Nisam
razumela.
How do you track the analytics of the product, and is something successful when you're introducing something new to the product?
To smo krenuli da radimo, naprimjer sjeli smo i rekli smo šta definira uspjeh našeg produkta. I tu smo rekli da što više ljudi using our product, to je bolje za nas. Znači, što više ljudi uploadenuje fotos i videos u našu cloud, to je za nas jedan veoma sorry. So uploading photos and videos to the cloud is very we can easily track that, and we can easily measure our success and usage of the product depending on how much people are uploading to our cloud. So that's, for example, a key performance indicator that we set up that we measured actively.
Okay, thank you. And the only other question I had is, why are you using GitHub when you're using Atlassian software? Why aren't you using Bitbucket, for example?
It's our developers. They decided they're more comfortable with GitHub, and we just let it like that because they preferred it.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Kako se nosite sa konkurencijom? Vidimo da je Kodak izbacio neku 360 kameru, ko dodaje nove feature u vaš software, ko odlučuje šta će da bude novo, šta će da se izbaci, kako pratite konkurenciju?
Na primjer, ja svaki dan, ja imam Google Alerts, znači svaki dan ujutro kad ustanem, prvi sat vremena ja gledam šta se dešava on the market, like koje nove firme, koje nove features imaju napolju. Što ja isto volim da radim, mi imamo puno ljudi koji su imali kamere za sedmicu i dvije i ja uvijek sa njim pokušavam da pričam i razgovaram. Šta hoćete, koji je cilj i uvijek pitam puno pitanja i pokušavam da razumijem šta tačno ta osoba, koji ima veliki cilj sa našom kamerom. I kroz te pitanje od ljudi koji su rukovali s našom kamerom, dobiješ baš jedan interesantnu sliku od ljudi i šta oni, kakve ciljeve imaju.
I've got a follow-up question to that. How do you interact with your user base? Do you have you mentioned you have, you don't like email, but do you use a Slack community? Slack je product management platform, ne znam da li ste čuli za nju, ali dosta startups koristi to. Govorim samo kao background information. Ali koristite li Slack i koje imate kao veteran users or like your beta users? How do you interact with them?
Da. I'll answer that in English. So for our internal communication, we use Jira and HipChat. HipChat is basically the same like Slack. But outside, to the outside world, we set up like a Slack channel. So our users, anybody who was interested in, they could join the Slack channel and we would really talk to them on a one-on-one basis. So as soon as we launched our product, we set up that Slack channel, and then that's how we try to manage also our support service. And it's really nice because when you talk in a group of many people, sometimes questions just get answered by your other users and not necessarily by you. So Slack is a very creative way for us to really involve people and users from the early stage on and get a lot of valuable feedback.
Thank you.
Neko još pitanje? Ok, to je bilo to. Hvala vam puno na prezentaciji. Nadam se da će vam se neko obratiti preko maila kada mu pade neko pitanje na pamet. Hvala na divnoj prezentaciji. Čujemo se i vidimo se.
Samo da najavim sljedeća...
Hvala i vam.
Hvala Bojana. Samo da najavim još i sljedeću prezentaciju. Imat ćemo Darija, koji je angel investor i VC u Silicon Valley. Imao je par projekata i mislim da će biti dobar prezentator što se tiče uopšte kakav je mentalitet Silicon Valley, šta traže investitori, šta se očekuje tamo. U svakom slučaju hvala vam što ste došli i vidimo se sljedeći put. Hvala Bojana.